Hi, and thanks for watching this message video. We're in week 2 of a new message series where we're talking about what it really means to be followers of God, or believers, or Christians. And what we're doing is we're working through the acrostic followers so that we can learn 9 different things that followers of God have always been known for. And the reason why we're doing this is so that it will help us when it comes to 2 ways. The first way is when it comes to the assessment of our own spiritual condition or the spiritual condition of those that are around us, which is something that all of us as followers, regardless of age, need to be doing on a regular basis. For instance, if you're 50 like I am, or if you're 15 like what my children are, it does not matter. If you're a follower of God, you and I need to be regularly assessing ourselves and others around us so that we can know whether or not they are or aren't followers, and these 9 things will help us with that. The second thing that knowing these 9 things will help us with is when it comes to the development of our own spiritual condition or that of others. Meaning, as we learn what these 9 things are, we can then strive to live them out in our lives as well. Now, we started this last week by talking about the very first thing that followers should be known for, which is faith. However, if you watched the message video from last week, you know that faith is supposed to be something that is accessible by visible expressions. In fact, the brother of Jesus, James, said that our faith is supposed to be seen in our actions, or in other words, it should be demonstrated in the way that we obey him, which is the second word of the followers acrostic. And let's be real, let's be honest for a second. Obviously, anybody who is a follower of God should be demonstrating obedience somehow, some way to the things that he taught. Even if we don't know all of his teachings, there should be some element of every follower's life where it looks like they are attempting to be obedient to God, or at least to, in some way, like I said, shape or form, to his teachings. For instance, listen to what Jesus said to the crowds. Matthew 7:24 through 27. Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. This was Jesus' way of saying to those that were listening to him that refusing to accept him or believe in him as God or to make the choice to not follow his teachings was a bad one. It was a foolish one. But nonetheless, it was still their choice, just like it's still our choice. This is a truth that we all need to recognize, is that God always gives us choices right from the very beginning, even with Adam and Eve. For example, if you remember, what God did was he created for them an entire garden filled with delicious things to be able to eat, and then told them, don't eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. What this did was it presented them with a choice. They now could either, 1, listen to God and show that they had faith in him by obeying what it is that he said, or they could choose to disobey God and show him that they didn't have any faith in him. Now, we all know that Adam and Eve made the choice to not obey God, to disobey God and not show their faith in him and to go another path. And that all of us have been impacted by their choice or decision, just like all of the animal kingdom was impacted by the serpent's decision to sin. But the first 2 people who were actually impacted by Adam and Eve's decision was their 2 sons, Cain and Abel. And if you don't know this, Abel was actually considered one of the heroes of faith. In fact, he's listed first amongst the heroes of faith by the writer of the book of Hebrews in chapter 11. In fact, listen to what was said, particularly about Abel. Hebrews 11:4. It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed his approval of his gifts. Although Abel is long dead, he still speaks to us by his example of faith. For those who don't know the story, after God cursed Adam and Eve and booted them out of the garden, their sons, Cain and Abel, grew up, and Cain grew up to be a farmer and helped his mom and dad working the land or the soil to try to overcome the curse, and Abel became a shepherd of sheep. Well, apparently, during this time, God had given both Cain and Abel some specific instructions, commands, or teachings on how they were to approach God around harvest time in a way that would demonstrate their faith in him. This is what we're told. Genesis 4, 3 through 7. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master." Cain and Abel were presented with a choice, just like Adam and Eve were, and just like the people in Jesus' day, and just like we are. We can either choose to obey what God tells us to do, and therefore display our faith in Him and be accepted, or we can choose not to and be rejected. This goes way beyond just mental acknowledgement again. Cain clearly knew that God existed, but he willfully, deliberately disobeyed what it was that he was told to do in order to express his faith in God. And this disobedience was counted as sin. And this has always been the case. When you and I choose to disobey God, this is sin. And this is what was clearly stated to the Israelites as well. Disobedience is sin. In fact, listen to what Moses said to these original followers, the ones who literally followed God out of Egypt and into the wilderness to meet Him. Deuteronomy 11, 1 through 22. "You must love the Lord your God and always obey His requirements, decrees, regulations, and commands. Keep in mind that I am not talking now to your children, who have never experienced the discipline of the Lord your God or seen His greatness and His strong hand and powerful arm. They didn't see the miraculous signs and wonders He performed in Egypt against Pharaoh and all his land. They didn't see what the Lord did to the armies of Egypt and to their horses and chariots, how He drowned them in the Red Sea as they were chasing you. He destroyed them, and they have not recovered to this very day. Your children didn't see how the Lord cared for you in the wilderness until you arrived here. They didn't see what He did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, a descendant of Reuben, when the earth opened up its mouth in the Israelite camp and swallowed them, along with their households and tents and every living thing that belonged to them. But you have seen the Lord perform all these mighty deeds with your own eyes. Therefore, be careful to obey every command I am giving you today, so you may have strength to go in and take over the land you are about to enter. If you obey, you will enjoy a long life in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors and to you, their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. For the land you are about to enter and take over is not like the land of Egypt from which you came, where you planted your seed and made irrigation ditches with your foot as in a vegetable garden. Rather, the land you will soon take over is a land of hills and valleys with plenty of rain, a land that the Lord your God cares for. He watches over it through each season of the year. If you carefully obey the commands I am giving you today, and if you love the Lord your God and serve Him with all your heart and soul, then He will send the rains in their proper seasons, the early and late rains, so you can bring in your harvests of grain, new wine, and olive oil. He will give you lush pasture land for your livestock, and you yourselves will have all you want to eat. But be careful. Don't let your heart be deceived so that you turn away from the Lord and serve and worship other gods. If you do, the Lord's anger will burn against you. He will shut up the sky and hold back the rain, and the ground will fail to produce its harvests. Then you will quickly die in that good land the Lord is giving you. So commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these words of mine. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Teach them to your children. Talk about them when you are at home, and when you are on the road, when you are going to bed, and when you are getting up. Write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates, so that as long as the sky remains above the earth, you and your children may flourish in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors. Be careful to obey all these commands I am giving you. Show love to the Lord your God by walking in His ways and holding tightly to Him. Whether it was Cain and Abel, whether it was Adam and Eve, and whether it was the original followers of God, the Israelites, or whether it was the people that were in Jesus' day, or whether it's us who can read what it is that Jesus' followers have written down inside of the Bible. We've all been told the same thing, that disobedience is sin, yes, but that obeying God is the best expression of our faith in Him. That's what makes Him feel loved. And not only that, that the best way that we can provide an expression of faith to our children or to those that are around us is by being obedient to the things that God has said, His commandments, His regulations, the things that He wants us to do in terms of instructions or teachings. And so, take a moment and assess yourself. Are you the kind of person that others around you view, and they can see that you love God? And the reason why you love Him is because you are careful to know and obey his commandments? Or about God? Does God look at you and is like, oh man, the Holy Spirit's like, right on, I can see that you really do care about learning what my commandments are. For instance, listen to what Jesus said to his followers or his disciples before his death and resurrection. John 14:15-21. If you love me, obey my commandments, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate who will never leave you. He is the Holy Spirit who leads into all truth. The world cannot receive him because it isn't looking for him and doesn't recognize him. But you know him because he lives with you now and later will be in you. No, I will not abandon you as orphans. I will come to you. Soon the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Since I live, you also will live. When I am raised to life again, you will know that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Those who accept my commandments and obey them are the ones who love me. And because they love me, my Father will love them, and I will love them and reveal myself to each of them. If we have genuine faith in Jesus, then his Spirit is living within us, helping us to not only know what the commands are that God has given to us, but even the ones in the moment. And then he is giving us the power to actually follow through and obey them. That's what Jesus was talking about. And so, when it comes right down to it, you and I have everything that we need in order to be able to follow through on the teachings that Jesus has given to us. And the truth is, Jesus has made those teachings incredibly simple. In fact, listen to what it is that he said in a direct response to a question that was given to him from one of the religious leaders at that time, and then what Jesus went even further to do to simplify these commands into what we now refer to as the Golden Rule. Matthew 22:36-40. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. Matthew 7:12. Do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets. Again, Jesus made it clear that because of our love for God, that our whole heart, our whole mind, or all of our strength and soul should be thrown into this effort to love God. And that when we choose to obey his commands to love others, that's the best demonstration of not only our faith in God, but our love for God. And so, that being the case, you and I should constantly be working on this. And side note, when we choose to deliberately work on anything in our life, that's when our spiritual condition then starts to develop. So, that being the case, what you and I as followers of God should be doing constantly is assessing ourselves in these ways. 1, do the people around us see any expressions of our faith in God through our obedience to love them? Meaning, are they seeing any expressions of love from us toward them, even if it's only because of our love for God? Or does God see you and I willfully, intentionally, deliberately, looking for ways to be able to express love to those, let's say, in the workplace, or at school, or in our families, or at church? When God sees that you and I are intentionally trying to obey his command to love others, that's when he not only sees or expresses or feels our expression of love and our faith in him, but obviously these are the things that then make a massive difference in the lives of others. And what you and I have definitely been called to is not just attend to or assess or develop our own spiritual condition, but it is the life of others. So that's what we should be working on this week. And to help us with that, what I want to do is I want to close by reading what the Apostle John wrote to the church, who was not only constantly trying to assess himself, but others as well. And one of the ways that he asked them to do so was by doing this. Here's what he said. 1 John 2:3-8. And we can be sure that we know him if we obey his commandments. If someone claims, I know God, but doesn't obey God's commandments, that person is a liar and is not living in the truth. But those who obey God's word truly show how completely they love him. That is how we know we are living in him. Those who say they live in God should live their lives as Jesus did. Dear friends, I'm not writing a new commandment for you. Rather, it is an old one you have had from the very beginning. This old commandment to love one another is the same message you heard before, yet it is also new. Jesus lived the truth of this commandment, and you also are living it. For the darkness is disappearing, and the true light is already shining.